repercussions of that weight cycling is quite scary. Dieting cycle that we're stuck in is doing more harm than good. Even well-educated people, big-name celebrities are following fad diets and they're getting the same results, which is weight loss followed by weight regain.
What's the most common mistake you find when people decide they want to lose weight?
They prescribe a caloric restriction, but unfortunately, our body goes into shutdown mode. And I'm talking about just a couple of kilos of weight loss.
Your approach is called the interval weight loss, and how is that different from all the other methods that you've mentioned?
When you get a person to lose weight in small intervals, you prevent your biology coming into play. And then prescribing other principles around how to eat, what to eat, how to incorporate movement that's sustainable, and also how to develop a better relationship with sleep.
Is there one surprising thing you learned in doing all of that that most people don't know?
I think that brain function in particular is fascinating. So your brain's
Really?
going, we need to survive. Why is our weight going down? This is not a good situation to be in. And in order to survive, I need to get more high-calorie foods in.
Do you have any tips for the busy parents as to how we can stay on track with this?
Well, the first thing is
Amazing. Dr. Nick Fuller, you're here with me in the real, which is so nice. Thank you for taking the time.
it's lovely to meet you. And
Yeah.
really nice to talk to you in person.
I'm very excited for this episode. Well, I think we've got a lot to cover. But I guess first, for those that are listening that haven't come across you or your work in a couple of minutes, how did you start to do the work that you're doing?
Well, it's probably very likely you haven't come across my work because I am a clinician working in a hospital environment, researching, I guess, how to better treat overweight obesity for the adult population, but also researching what we can do to set up the next generation so that they do not have this lifelong struggle with weight and health. So day to day, I'm working at the University of Sydney, Royal Prince Alfred Hospital, which is based in the inner west of Sydney.
Amazing.
I've been there for a long time, nearly
And what's
2
your
decades.
actual background training?
Yeah, my background is in exercise physiology, and then I moved on to a degree in nutrition dietetics, and then I completed a doctorate in weight management, looking at different treatments for overweight and obesity.
So you don't like studying, is that what I'm hearing?
Pretty much. How crazy is that? Like more than a decade of studying.
I know, but it's one of those things though, I find that, well, when I was studying back to back, I was almost like, if I don't do this now, I think I'll lose the drive to do it. And then it's been a long time and I would love to go back to study, but it's hard to go back when you've had a long time of not doing it.
Definitely, especially when life changes and you're presented with kids and all these other different, I guess, responsibilities. Look, I was fortunate to get it done then and there.
So was I. I just kept going. I thought if I stop, that's it. It won't keep on happening. But life is different at that, when we're a bit younger and we've got that flexibility. I mean, imagine, this is what I always think, imagine finishing a day and getting in the car and thinking, what will I do now? Be nice. Maybe I'll go to the gym. Maybe I won't.
We had so much spare time.
We had so much spare time.
I wonder what I did with all that spare time.
I 100% agree with this. I do think about it sometimes. Like, imagine just getting in your car and driving off and going, what am I going to do now? Those days are long gone. So you've helped lots of people lose weight, including celebrities and well-known people. What's the most common mistake you find when people decide they want to lose weight?
Well, I guess the real hard thing for the population to comprehend or get their head around is that they're not failing due to a lack of willpower. We are extremely good, especially women, at following diets. You've got to take your hat off to them because they're putting their hand up. They acknowledge that they, have a problem, want to do something about it, but unfortunately they're stuck in this dieting or yo-yo dieting, and that's because that's what's available on the, I guess, public market, and that's what we're presented from the dieting industry day in, day out. But this is what everyone's following, and it doesn't matter if it's a keto or an intermittent fasting or an Atkins, low carb, high fat. There are sort of different derivatives of their predecessors. They're no different. They prescribe a caloric restriction and tell you what foods to eat, what foods to cut out. But unfortunately, even if you're doing a really good job at sticking to it and very disciplined, which many of us are, our body goes into shutdown mode. And that's what our research shows at the University of Sydney. The minute a person starts losing weight, and this is the real sad thing that we're up against, our body goes into shutdown mode. And I'm talking about just a couple of kilos of weight loss. And what's happening then is your metabolism starts lowering, your appetite hormones start changing, telling you to eat more food.
It's like
your adrenal glands are pumping out more cortisol.
You can feel it, can't you?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You know, your thyroid gland's being suppressed. Your brain function starts changing, telling you to seek out foods that are higher in calories. It's basically your body working to protect itself. Okay, it's an evolutionary problem. It doesn't know any better, and it wants to protect its set point, and that's that weight you remember being at for a long period of time. It's the weight that you always rebound back to with dieting, and even well-educated people and big-name celebrities are following fad diets, and they're getting the same results, which is weight loss followed by weight regain. Look, there's no question you will get weight loss with all different diet approaches. The more drastic ones, you'll get more weight loss because they're telling you to follow a stricter caloric program or reduction, getting you to cut out more foods, more food groups. But unfortunately, this is going to happen in terms of the biological changes, physiological responses taking place in the body. This is what we're up against, and this is what, you know, our, I guess, population need to understand because your body's going to work against you, and this is the reason why you keep failing long term.
And that doesn't, I guess, mean that we shouldn't try and actually be as healthy as possible. But I think I was reading in your book, you talked about how not only will you gain the weight back, but research suggests you actually gain more back.
That's right. Yeah, and we like to say it's that plus GST.
But if we keep on doing that each time, we find ourselves weighing more and more and more, and we're actually trying to do something to shift our weight in the other direction.
You're spot on. So a really good piece of research to highlight that is looking at twins. So some clever research has followed up more than 4,000 sets.
Yeah, I read that in your book. I was like, that's a lot of effort.
Yeah, and they followed them up for 25 years. Now, I guess the conclusion that came from that was the twin that had been dieting over their lifetime or intentionally trying to lose weight through diets and caloric restriction was always heavier than the twin that had never dieted. That's as confronting as it is. So the twin that was, you know, they've got the same genes. What we're talking about here is that intentional weight loss driving up your set point over time. So instead of, you know, losing the 10 and putting the 10 back on, you're losing 10, and as you just mentioned, you're putting on 11 or maybe even 12 kilos, and that just drives it up quicker and faster over time. So unfortunately, that dieting cycle that we're stuck in is doing more harm than good.
And then also there is that unicorn, though, that we're probably all thinking of, that we see, that does follows some type of diet and seems to maintain that.
Yep.
But I think we have to acknowledge that there are freaks.
Yep.
But there's not the general population. It's not the majority. It's a very small percentage, right?
Yeah, look, you're right. People respond to different diets. You are spot on. But fewer than 5%, the data is showing us succeeding long term. And what I mean by that is actually losing weight and then keeping it off for more than 5 years. So that's not many people.
Right.
The majority of the population, which is what we're not talking about, we celebrate those short-term wins. We go out with friends and family and colleagues, and we've lost the 10 kilos over a few months or a few weeks in some instances. We celebrate, but we're not talking about that long-term pain when that person's putting the weight back on and unfortunately ending up in a worse off position in terms of health as well, not just physical health but mental health, because the repercussions of that weight cycling is quite scary, and that's what we also don't talk about.
So we're not just walking off here, are we? You're not just telling everyone you can't lose weight, okay, bye.
Definitely not. It's not all doom and gloom, everyone.
Your approach is called the interval weight loss, and how is that different from all the other methods that you've mentioned?
Yes, so that's a good question. What we've got to do, remember, is address this evolutionary problem. So remember, the reason we're going into, I guess, failure mode the minute we start dieting is because after a couple of kilos of weight loss or 5% of weight loss, remember, these physiological changes start taking place. So what we've also found with our research is that when you get a person to lose weight in small intervals of only a couple of kilos every second month, you prevent your biology coming into play. You prevent your physiology or the physiological changes taking place.
So you're basically just tricking your body.
You are.
Short term. And then it gets used to it.
That's right. So over the course of the month, we get patients to lose about 0.5 kilos of weight loss each week, 2 kilos over the month. And then you have to actually put the foot on the brake. You've got to maintain the weight the next month. Then you're allowed to go on and lose weight again. So visually it looks like a step down approach. Down, weight loss, and then you maintain your weight loss, then down, then maintain, etc. The hardest thing for a person is to get their head around those maintenance periods. We get excited by the number on the scales going down. We want to continue with weight loss. But that will only trigger those physiological changes taking place. So interval weight loss, coming back to your question, is losing weight in small intervals every second month, and then prescribing other principles around how to eat, what to eat, how to incorporate movement that's sustainable, and also how to develop a better relationship with sleep. Because we do like to harp on about diet, and we often say, is it an 80% diet, 20% activity type approach? Well, no, that's all nonsense. We really do need to be focusing on diet, activity, and sleep health, and trying to give equal.
I think that's so important to talk about too.
Yeah.
So you've seen a direct correlation between sleep deprivation or lack of sleep and obviously what that does with our hormones and weight gain.
That's right. And even after one night of sleep deprivation, we wake up hungrier. So
we wake up like we're hungover. These days. I feel like I've been out partying all night.
Definitely. We do. It's like sometimes
it's an
you're
awful
worse.
Feeling.
Yeah, but if I take blood samples off you the day after you wake up after sleep deprivation, and I'm talking for an adult, just less than 7 hours of sleep, and I measure your ghrelin levels, which is that hunger hormone produced from your stomach acting on the clever part of the brain called the hypothalamus, it's going to be higher than usual. It's going to be telling your brain to go and reach for more food. And that's what you're up against. Then that also has a flow-on effect because you make poorer lifestyle choices. You're more likely to go to the vending machine, the corner store to satisfy that high you're looking for. Your brain's searching for high-calorie foods, which are higher sugar, higher
Which is
fat.
what it should be doing because it's just trying to cope.
That's right.
It's doing what it knows how to do. I think that's
right.
what we fail to realise. We're like, why is my body doing this to me?
Yes, a very good point. And then you're also tired and lethargic, so you're less likely to engage in activity, physical, exercise. So it has this flow-on effect. So sleep health has got to be
It's very interesting, sleep health, actually, because I started tracking when I've had my Aura ring maybe for 3 years now. I got them when I like gadgets, when it first kind of came out. And first was available in Australia. It'd been available for a lot longer than that. I'm just not someone that has always ever needed a lot of sleep. Doesn't mean that if you put me in the right environment, I don't sleep, but I've always been okay with 6-ish hours sleep until I started tracking it. And I got very intrigued as to what that looked like for me. And whilst I can function completely fine and feel completely fine, my numbers on my Aura and all the other factors, I started to realise, wow, I actually am far better off for so many reasons when I prioritise that and make sure. The reason I actually love my Aura the most is it tells me when to go to bed.
Yeah.
Because I will just keep on doing things, working, whatever. But I think it is underestimated. Sleep hygiene is underestimated. And then also for the person listening that is saying, well, I don't sleep properly, I mean, that would be a really important thing to look into, right?
Definitely. And there's simple things you can be doing. I mean, there's so many different aspects we need to investigate as to why you're not sleeping. But one in particular we know is because of the devices.
Right.
They're the last thing we're using before bed. We're scrolling or we're working, tablets, phones, whatever it might be. But as we all know, these emit blue light. Unfortunately, these do suppress melatonin production, which basically tells your brain it's daytime instead of nighttime. Now, that means you're going to have a hard time falling asleep. But also it means you're going to have a hard time staying asleep. So you might wake up regularly. What we get you to do in this instance is just have 1 hour in the first instance, but then work up to 2 hours before bed where you're not using screens. And the only way to do that is to actually replace that I guess, behaviour or habit with a new positive habit. So what else can you be doing? It might be helping the kids with the homework, reading to them, trying a new hobby, going for a stroll together, but reassess that evening routine, mix up what you do and stop using screens before bed because unfortunately, remember, we're going to take blood samples off you the next morning. Appetite hormones will be going haywire and then it's all out of control for the whole day and it stays out of control. It's this flow-on effect.
You know, it was interesting recently when we were talking before how I've been away and we were obviously, as you do when you're away, you just go with the flow. And in Greece, everyone eats really late at night. Everyone's eating because it's hot. So they wait for the sun to go down and then they go and have their family meal together. Yep. But it means that you're awake later. And so we were really not going to bed before midnight ever. But it didn't take very long before we were waking 10, 11 in the morning, and which was great. But it's like it's so interesting to see how much sleep my body will take if I create the space for it to have that. I would never sleep that long here.
No, and in that instance, I guess you can unwind a little bit and you get used to that culture.
You do, and what I love most actually is the fact that, well, we don't have a car, so we always eat and then we'll go for a walk eventually back to where we're staying. But that whole process of, you know, being social, eating together, taking a stroll, it really actually physically feels really good.
Yeah, and there's so much to be said for that. The evening time and I guess dinner really is the most important meal from a social and cultural perspective, particularly in regions like Southern Europe. So we do need to reevaluate that relationship during the evening time, sit together at the dinner table, change up what you do after that as well. Try not to go to separate, I guess, areas of the house.
Quarters of the house.
Yeah, and start scrolling and watching screens. Get together if you can and do something as a family and try to ensure that screens aren't the last thing you're using before bed.
It's really important, I think, and we're all guilty of it.
We are. It's a hard habit to break.
It is a very hard habit to break. I know even having a television, we don't have a television in the bedroom, but many years ago we had a television in 2 different places that we lived. And if I would watch television and then try and go to sleep, there's not a chance. I would be awake for ages. I don't know. I used to wonder, is it because I'm like emotionally involved in whatever I was watching, or is it because I've actually had that blue light on my eyes? Probably both.
Both.
But I would highly recommend you get your television out of your room as well.
Yes, definitely.
It's not just the phone.
It's a sleep sanctuary. It's just for your bed and sleeping, nothing else.
Yeah, how lovely though.
Yeah.
So is your last book, just correct me if I'm wrong, is the interval weight loss for women?
So
Was that the book before?
That's the book before
Right.
Healthy Parents.
Okay.
Yes.
So we will move on to Healthy Parents, but I want to touch on the perspective of women and female weight loss because we have other challenges.
Absolutely.
And to your point also.
Us men have it easy.
Well, you do have it easy. I say this to patients all the time. It's like the men bring the men in to treat. They're way easier. Yeah. But obviously we have the challenge of our hormones and changing hormones. And just when you think you figured it out, then it comes and changes again.
Yes.
What have you seen and how does your method help and assist with that, and obviously factor in women's hormones and women's bodies when we're talking about weight?
Sure. I guess there's several life challenges you're up against. I mean, going back decades before and when you're starting potentially contraceptive pill and then going through pregnancy or multiple pregnancies and the challenges that come with that and raising children and looking after a family, but then later on going through menopause. We do know this is a period of life where women tend to put on more weight. Yes, there's hormonal changes taking place. But look, the very positive thing is that we do know too that hormones, even though they contribute to some of that weight change, it's not all of it.
Right.
It's actually our lifestyle. We've got to really focus on our lifestyle at that time. So you might be feeling really tired and lethargic, for instance, while you're going through menopause, and we neglect aspects of our health like exercise and physical activity. But it's the time of our life where we've got to focus on it most.
Right.
Okay, we've got to really be focusing on getting that daily movement in, mixing up what we do, thinking about how we eat, making sure we eat from big to small. Now,
what does that mean for those that are listening, big to small?
we'll bring it back to the science. The reason why we eat big to small is because when I sit you down and present the same meal at morning compared to evening, your body burns the calories 2.5 times more efficiently at the breakfast time compared to the evening time. So we need to be working with our body. But in the modern day environment, most of us run out the door, coffee, maybe a kid under each arm, and then we start to ramp up our food intake, particularly in the afternoon and evening time. But that's when our body's more sluggish. It's not able to burn the calories more efficiently.
Why do we do that? Like, why do we eat more in the afternoon if our bodies are actually wired to do it the other way around?
Habit.
Yeah, right.
Habit. It's become a habit, particularly in I guess Western culture, where we're very time poor. We're busy. We have responsibilities with work and family life and everything else that presents us. So we're just neglecting it. And we're waking up sleep deprived.
Yeah, that's true too.
We're also waking up not hungry. But you know why we're not waking up hungry? Because we're loading up on the calories in the afternoon and the evening time. That's the only reason why.
So what would be the ideal time to eat dinner and then it's shut the kitchen, right?
Yeah, look, you talked about a different scenario with a different culture. We eat late in different parts, but then we have breakfast a little bit later as well. Right. But in our context, ideally we're eating, sort of before 8 p.m. Mm-hmm. And it's the smallest meal of the day. So you have to think of it of most important from social and cultural, sitting around the dinner table together, but maybe serving up your meal in a smaller bowl, rice bowl, bread and butter sized plate, going back for the unlimited salad, vegetables. But then you will give your body that chance of waking up hungry. And that's what you want to start seeing over time. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes more than a couple of months for it to happen. But that's your body then responding to its needs. It needs the calories in the morning. You will then start to ramp up the food intake and taper off throughout the day. But at the moment, 90% of us are actually ramping up the food intake in the afternoon and the evening because we haven't had enough calories at the start of the day. It's your body just saying, I've got to compensate. I've got to get the calories in. And then we tend to associate that with comfort and binge eating as well because we haven't had enough food. So not just exercise are you focusing on at this challenging time of life, but you've got to focus on your eating. Simple one there is big to small, making sure the meals are balanced, source of whole grain carb, protein, good fat, but then also the sleep health.
Right. And so, I mean, what you're saying is that as women go through those more challenging phases, this should be the priority.
Definitely. And look, even though you are going to have your hormones against you and it's going to contribute to some of that weight gain, it's very positive in the sense that it's not the reason why. There's no doubt you're up against it with what's going on in your body, but the real reason is because our lifestyle gets neglected, our health gets neglected. That's the time you've really got to focus on it the most.
I think that time is particularly interesting. We're probably doing more than we've ever done. We're having children later as one thing. Yeah. So, like to your point, women are in perimenopause, wrangling toddlers, caring probably for their parents, trying to hold down a job, manage a household. Like there's so many layers to what we're doing at that point in time, whereas I feel maybe once upon a time we were still having children, but we also had older children to help take care of the household.
Yes.
It's just very different.
Yes.
And I think that above all, we put ourselves last often as women and put everyone else first.
That's the thing I was going to say. I mean, we put our partner, our children, first. But you really do need to start thinking and prioritising your own health. It is so important because even though you love your family and you want to do everything for them, maybe you just need to give yourself some of your own me time as well. Block out that time each day.
Permission.
It's permission. You have to. It's so important.
Well, no one's going to come along really and do it. No. Maybe your partner might say to you, hey, I think you need to, but really, at the end of the day, it's up to us to take that responsibility as well.
It is, definitely.
It's really hard. Hey there, it's Nat Kringoudis, host of the Wellness Collective podcast. I know how important it is to have a safe space for women's health, and that's why we created NK the Membership, an online sanctuary where you can access expert guidance and support right from home. Get early access to monthly masterclasses, unlimited access to our entire catalogue, and practical resources to achieve hormone harmony. Plus, enjoy a 20% discount on supplements and join my monthly live Q&A sessions. hormones. Join our community of like-minded women and wellness experts to revolutionise your health one topic at a time. Visit our website and sign up now. It's legit Netflix for hormones.